This episode of the Model 3 Owners Club podcast is brought to you by Duliban Insurance. If you live in Ontario, Canada, and are looking for the best price and coverage on your Tesla, give Duliban a call at 1-855-385-4226 or visit our website at dulibaninsurance.com/Tesla. Good evening, everyone. Welcome again to the Model 3 Owners Club podcast. I am your host, and I'm joined by our usual cadre of people. We have Eric Camacho from Florida. How you doing, Eric?
Doing
Eric
well.
Camacho.
Hello, everyone. Oh, hi.
Michael Bodner as well from Florida. How you doing, Michael?
I'm doing well, thanks. Hi, everyone.
Yes, and last but not least, of course, is our good friend Ian Pavelko from Montreal, Mr. Mad Hungarian himself. How you doing, Ian?
I am very well, thanks for asking. Bonsoir tout le monde.
Yes, as usual. Well, we certainly had a lot of fun this past week doing our stuff, but we'll get into that a little bit later in the show. Of course, the big news this week is Tesla finally released their Model 3 production numbers. Well, actually, all of their production numbers. I'm going to read you a little bit of a paragraph that Tesla put out here so that everybody's on the same page so we can have a good discussion about this. So, Tesla says, in quotes, 53,239 Model 3 vehicles, which was in line with our guidance and almost double the volume of Q2. That's crazy. Anyway, during Q3, we transitioned Model 3 production from entirely rear-wheel drive at the beginning of the quarter to almost entirely dual motor during the last few weeks of the quarter. That's an interesting changeover, of course. This added significant complexity, but we successfully executed this transition and ultimately produced more dual motor than rear-wheel drive cars in Q3. In the last week of the quarter, we produced over 5,300 Model 3 vehicles, almost all of which were dual motor, meaning that we achieved a production rate of almost 10,000 drive units per week. That's crazy. 26,903 Model S and X vehicles, which was slightly higher than Q2 and in line with our full year guidance. Q3 deliveries, now this is the big one here because this is where they get to realize profits, totaled 83,500 vehicles, of which 55,840 Model 3s, 14,470 Model S, and 13,190 Model X. To put this into perspective, in just Q3, we delivered more than 80% of the vehicles that we delivered in all of 2017, and we delivered about twice as many Model 3s as we did in the previous quarters combined. 8,043 Model 3 vehicles and 3,776 Model S and X vehicles were in transit to customers at the end of Q3 and will be delivered in early Q4. Our overall target of 100,000 Model S and X deliveries in 2018 remains unchanged. Our net income and cash flow results will be announced along with the results, rest of our financial performance when we announce Q3 earnings. We can expect that in just a little over a month. Holy mackerel, these numbers are just crazy. This must be frustrating the shorts like you and believe. God.
You think?
Oh, that's just crazy. You know, the S-curve is finally here. We've hit that upwards slant on the S-curve. Of course, Tesla's been saying for a long time they want to get to 10,000 cars. I would suspect they'll get that sometime, probably in the next... probably about a year or so, but they need to because they have to get into the standard range car, of course, and they have to open up to the European and Pacific Asian countries as well. So good news all the way around. Eric, you were saying a little bit earlier something about numbers, of course, not only just the deliveries, but what does this mean for sales in North America? The numbers are crazy.
The numbers are, in fact, crazy. So we were talking before the show about where the Model 3 ranks in terms of comparing to other sedans in the market and those that are like luxury brands. So let's just look at just good old-fashioned sedans in America. So for the first time ever, an electric vehicle had outsold all sedans in America except for 4. 2 from Toyota, the Corolla and the Camry, and then 2 by Honda, the Civic and the Accord. So to know that the Model 3 has outsold the Nissan Sentra, the Ford Fusion, the Ford Focus, the Chevy Malibu, the Ford Mustang, the Elantra, I mean, the list goes on and on. It's an impressive feat on its own, and we still have so much more to go. It is possible that when we're talking about this number 3 months from now, when Q4 is over, we could possibly see the Model 3 as the number 1 selling car in all of North America for sedans. And that, as an electric car, is an amazing feat. Now, for luxury brands, this is even more impressive. So we announced the numbers: 55,840 Model 3s were sold in the third quarter. Most of them, of course, were given to American customers. Some in Canada, our neighbors to the north, as you guys can attest. Ian, thank you for being one of those very many new owners.
I'm doing my part, man.
Absolutely. But believe it or not, the Audi Q5, which is a wonderful car in its own right, came in second with 21,000 in the quarter. So the Model 3 had more than double the number of Audi Q5s sold and delivered in Q3. But it doesn't even stop there. The Model 3 also outsold all Acura, all Lincolns, and had more Model 3s sold than Lexus, BMW, Mercedes, and Audi, just in terms of cars. Now, if you include SUVs, yes, those manufacturers can go beyond that. But when you're looking at car to car, the Model 3 outsells all of those brands, which is amazing when you think about it, when people were scrambling to find out when they're going to get their car even just a year ago.
It's just crazy. I can't believe this. Now, I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate here because a lot of people online are saying, and this is the usual refrain, well, they're just fulfilling the backlog. It can't be sustainable. And to that we say, don't think so, because we haven't even seen the base model yet. You haven't any idea how many people are waiting for the base model? I mean, put your hand up. I mean, of course, my wife is over there, so I just can't put her hand up. Waiting for base model. There's so many people waiting for base model. They haven't opened up the markets into Europe yet, Asia Pacific countries, of course, and let alone North America. And of course, we're waiting for the other shoe to drop, and that's the Model Y, which will be a small SUV, CUV based on the Model 3 platform. That is hopefully supposed to be shown or revealed sometime in March in the early spring. So when that drops and they start taking reservations, I mean, that's the best-selling market in North America, really, is the CUVs. I mean, yes, Model 3 is doing really well in the sedan market. We haven't seen anything yet, I don't think, personally. That's just my opinion. But, yeah, judging from all the cars I see in my neighborhood, it's there's a lot of small SUVs and stuff. So, Michael, your wife just took delivery of her Model 3. Of course, this counts in as the third quarter, of course. So you got a little bit of things going on with that, or like how'd your delivery go with that?
Yeah, the delivery was great, actually. We got there, they were on time, the car was in perfect condition. We saw one tiny spot, actually, the next day, but nothing major on it. Overall, no complaints. The white on white is absolutely amazing. And only one odd, weird story to share from the delivery, though. I stepped away. I was doing my own filming and checking things out, inspecting the car. And while my wife was going over it with the delivery associate, he said, and there's the emergency release in the door. Never pull that. In fact, only pull it if you drive into a canal. It'll pop the door off. She didn't mention that to me at all. My father-in-law came over over the past weekend, and she took him out for a drive. And I said, yeah, not only is the car amazing, but it's actually the safest car on the road. And he said, I don't know if it's so safe if the door can just pop off while you're driving.
What?
And I said, what are you talking about? And that's how I found out what happened. And I said, no. It's just a manual release. The door does not pop off. And it felt a lot better after that. But
so he thought it was like an ejection seat or something, where it would come off the hinges?
Like don't press the red button type of ejector seat.
Oh my gosh. Well,
But yeah, my wife's been loving it. She takes all of her coworkers out for test drives around the block, and they basically think it's a spaceship.
That's the other part too. I mean, going back to what we were saying about demand, this car is going to have a snowball effect, because once the owners take people for rides, and we're talking about, I mean, we experienced it. Remember, Ian? Your neighbor came over and says, "Oh, you finally got your car," and she was just like, she was like, this thing's a spaceship. It's pretty cool.
It's been nonstop like that at work, and I wish I had noted the source of this, but I saw something in the last few days that said there's already this effect of orders popping up all around where new cars are being delivered. Like, they're already seeing the spin-off effect of this is like people in certain areas. So like if 4 cars get delivered into a certain neighborhood of a city, all of a sudden, bang, 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 new orders seem to be popping up around it. So this is real.
Hashtag snowball effect. That's what I put on one of my tweets today, because it's absolutely true. This car just has that magnetism about it that people just, their eyes just bug out of their head. You open the door, right? It's just like, whoa. And then you take them for a ride. and it's just instant sold. It's like the nature of the questions changes from like, oh, what's this thing all about, to like, where do I buy one of these?
Yep.
Right. Now, of course, interesting, because Erica was also commenting a little bit earlier on the sales situation. I've noticed an inordinate amount of people moving up to the Model 3. And, of course, there's a hashtag going around on the internet, called it the Tesla stretch. There's a lot of discussions about it on the forum, of course. Some people are really stretching their budgets to get this. But, for a lot of people, if you can do the math, it actually works out, because, you're saving quite a bit of fuel, especially in the northern countries like we are. Fuel is quite a bit more expensive. So, if you do the total cost of ownership, these cars certainly work out quite well for themselves.
And that's something that's very key you're saying there, Trevor, because a lot of people just look at the cost of the car as is. They start breaking down the monthly payments. Maybe they go onto the online design studio and say, well, this car is going to cost me X amount per month. I can only afford X amount down, and so forth. And it's understandable. For some people, there is sticker shock. But as I always tell people when I see them in person, when they ask me on Twitter or Facebook, the key is look at your actual cost of ownership. How much you're spending on gas? How often you're changing your oil? How often do you have to replace your tires? When you look at the total cost of ownership of a combustion engine versus an electric car, at the end of the day, you're always going to save money. And one of the greatest avenues for saving money is in your fuel costs. So here in Florida, for example, the average homeowner will pay about 11 to 12 cents per kilowatt for charging their vehicles at home. Now, superchargers are obviously more expensive, but you're basically paying for the convenience of charging faster. But even with that, you're spending roughly 2/3 less in electric costs for charging your vehicle than you are paying for gas. So if you have someone who's spending $600 a month, whether it's Canadian dollars or US dollars for fuel for their car, and you tell them, listen, I can save you $300, $400 on fuel costs, and you go, wow, in the course of a year, I could save thousands of dollars just on gas alone. That certainly makes up sometimes for the difference in your monthly payments. So, electric cars are very easy to maintain. If you're not sure of that, just ask any electric vehicle owner. It doesn't have to be a Tesla owner. Just ask anyone. Ask a Bolt or a Volt owner from Chevy. Let them tell you what it is. Electric cars are so crucial to how we're going to advance climate change practices and everything else. So believe me, it's not expensive to own one. It's very simple. And if you haven't driven one, drive one. Again, any brand, just get behind a car. But the Model 3 on its own is perfection. My opinion. But still, I think it's perfection.
I would definitely agree with you. Before we started the show, you were also telling us about that study that you read on the climate change situation.
Right.
And unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to read it and stuff, but there were some interesting points in there. Maybe you just want to reiterate for some of the viewers and the listeners what was going on in that?
Sure, absolutely, really quick. So for those of you that do not know, we have this group that comes together. It is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or the IPCC. Now, these are representatives from almost all the countries in the world that come together, usually in Europe, to discuss how we're going to combat climate change. And there's a report coming out very soon. Essentially, there's these different sub-panels among the main panel for the IPCC, and they're talking about how we're trying to curb and get away from the 1.5 degrees centigrade temperature increase that will, at some point, if we hit that mark, would be irreversible. And we would see systemic cataclysmic changes across the entire globe. So one of the things that they mentioned in this story was how to be very aggressive in combating this problem. And one of the things they mentioned is really a monumental shift towards total decarbonization. And they mentioned in this story, it would include such things as, lo and behold, no more gas-powered vehicles, a phase-out of coal-fired power plants, and airplanes running on biofuels. So again, that first part, the idea of having no gas-powered vehicles at all, Tesla is doing its part, and it's been here for over 14, 15 years now, essentially doing its part to not just remedy the problem here on American soil, but it knows it's a global problem. This is a humanitarian issue. And Tesla, for all the naysayers and the deniers, you're essentially saying we want companies like Tesla to fail. For right or for wrong, whatever the reasons are, it's stupid. It really is, in my mind, stupid, because you're literally saying, the hell with climate change. It's already going to happen. Don't bother trying to combat it. And Tesla's saying, whoa, we can do something. We really can. And we're going to try to do it in ways that A, has never been done before, has never been pushed this aggressively. And at the heart of its mission, it's about trying to accelerate the globe to becoming sustainable and using sustainable energy. So when the IPCC essentially has this brain trust of people saying we got to do everything we can to combat this climate change problem, and Tesla's going, hi, we're here trying to do our part, it's only reinforcing the significance and the weight of this problem. And if you don't want to see Tesla succeed, find a planet, go to the moon, just get the hell off of our surface, because you're not helping the problem. You're only going to make it worse.
So basically, get off my lawn. You know what? Thanks for that, Eric. That was very succinctly put. I'll definitely have to read the article. We need more companies like Tesla doing more in the energy sector, in the sustainable energy sector. Tesla can't do it by themselves, although they certainly have a good foothold and head start on a lot of people. I think in a lot of ways, the energy side of the business is going to really start growing more and more once we get more projects like we did in Australia, of course. They just reported, I think, the Australia project's actually made money now. So in that very short amount of time.
Yeah.
So it's looking really promising. They just got to keep building out the gigafactory and start moving that situation. I think in the other thing too that it brings me to a point that I want to make, that Tesla seems to be accelerating their plans for the China gigafactory, because one of the things that they mentioned in their quarterly numbers, of course, is that they're suffering because of large import tariffs on their cars. I think it's up to 40% on their cars. So yeah. So if they're turning that into not only a factory for building, cars and doing cells and stuff, that they certainly have a good foothold there. All right. Well, all good news.
Trev, one last...
go ahead, Michael.
Real quick, one thing I wanted to add. We've got 2 high-power wall chargers on order, but right now we have none. So we're actually sharing the UMC for the cars. Mm-hmm. And it was something my wife was really nervous about up front was, how are we going to handle 2 cars? What could happen? So I don't know if anyone could see this. It's a little blurry, maybe.
I see it there.
8:30, my car's full. After the show's done recording, unplug my car, plug her car in. Every day we leave with a full charge. And that's the inconvenient way of sharing one plug. So really, really easy to manage an electric car, even 2, as long as you can get near a faster charging plug.
Yeah. Ian, you were going to do something similar to that, because I remember at your place you had 2 wall connectors, because you have a Chevy Volt as well, 2013. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
And you were going to get I think you told me you were going to get a Tesla Tap, right, to hook up to Bridget's car? She's going to use that car from now on?
Yeah, I got to say, even for those of you who don't currently have Teslas or are going to be like a partial Tesla household like we're going to be, the Tesla charger tends to be still the best value. I mean, at 500 US, 633 Canadian, they're hard to beat. I mean, anything else that has the kind of charging capabilities, I mean, it'll go up to 80 amps, right? And we can only use 48 on Model 3, but even to get a 48 amp charger, is like I know in Canada it's like $1,000 plus proposition. The other thing that's awesome about the Tesla charger is it's intelligent, and you can daisy chain them, meaning you can have up to 4 of the wall connectors all on the same circuit, and what they'll do is they'll load share based on which car has the most demand. So in our case, the Volt can only ever use 16 amps. It's a 3.3 kilowatt charger, so it's not a particularly power-hungry car. And my Model 3, of course, will go up to 48 amps. About the most I want to put on my box at this point is the 60 amp circuit. I might be able to go a little higher, but I can easily do 60 amps with what we got. So what's cool is we can have both of them connected, both of them charging, and when the Volt is connected, I'll get the remaining 32 amps that are available, because on a 60 amp circuit, that means you have 48 amps available to charge the cars. You only ever use 80% of the maximum capacity of the circuit. So we divvy it up so that the Volt gets the 16 amps, I get the remaining 32, and when the Volt is not plugged in, I'll get the full 48. And even as my car starts to reach maximum, the rest goes to the Volt. When the Volt's finished charging, well, then it'll automatically divert the full 48 to my car. So really cool system, very affordable. The only thing being, of course, is you need, as Trevor pointed out, the Tesla Tap. That is the adapter to take the Tesla proprietary connector and change it to the J1772, the SAE socket that the Volt and most other EVs have. Now that's going to be in another, I think they're around $249.
Yeah, they're $250 US, I think it is.
$250 US or something like that. But there again, tack that on to the $500 US for the charger. You're still talking a reasonable amount.
Yeah, still a really good deal.
And you have a Tesla tap. So if ever you wanted to plug the Volt or whatever your other EV is into a Tesla destination charger somewhere, you have that capability. You've got that part lying around.
Excellent. Yeah, I agree with you. The wall connector, in my opinion, and I've looked at a lot of other units out there, absolutely the best deal as far as an EVSC that you need for your house. So for those of you who are still haven't set up, this is the other thing too, and I don't mean to be jumping around here, but I did have an opportunity to, before I came down to see you last week, is I did my part in helping orient new owners here in Ontario during the third quarter delivery event. And I would say a good solid 50+% of the people I talked to still didn't have their charging situation sorted out for the Model 3. They didn't know what they were going to do. They said, well, I'm just going to plug it in. I'm on the street. I mean, I heard it all across the board. So those of you who are still waiting for a Model 3, please do yourself a favor and call an electrician. Get your charging situation sorted out. It is not fun to charge on 120 volt, especially if you have rather long distances. When I was in Montreal last week, I stayed with my cousin for a couple of days, and my poor car hung off of his 8 amp 120 volt circuit for literally almost 48 hours, and it was brutal. Now, if you're going somewhere and you're staying there for like a week, who cares? But on a daily basis, it's like I don't wish it on my worst enemy. So do yourself a favor. Make sure you get a 240 volt circuit set up. Even if it's a NEMA 1450, it doesn't matter. I think as far as the EVSE is concerned, or Tesla's wall connectors, they call it, is a matter of convenience. It's the least expensive EVSE you can buy on the market. It's the most intelligent, and you don't need adapters to plug it in. It just works. So highly recommended. FineLab has a line of protective coatings that were engineered to protect your Tesla's paint, leather, carpet, plastic, and wheels, effectively blocking all those UV rays and environmental factors before they ever get to ruin your brand new baby. FineLab offers a complete line of car care products and ceramic coatings for both the do-it-yourselfer and professional detailers. Did we mention we also have the world's first self-healing coating? Check us out at finelab.com, that's spelled FEYNLAB, to see the science behind the self-healing. Check out our product catalog and click Contact Us for a free quote from a certified installer in your area. FineLab and Tesla, we were meant for each other. Where's version 9 of the firmware? What's going on? I mean, here we are.
It's like the worst thing ever. I can't stand waiting. It's driving me insane.
It's like I want my iOS
What is going on,
13.
man?
Hashtag first world problems.
Yeah, I know. Well, Elon did say last week, of course, that it was imminent, hopefully rolling out the last few days of last week. And of course, weekend came and went, and here we are almost towards the end of this week. Nothing's happened. He did send out a subsequent tweet and said that they were still ironing out a few more of the last-minute bugs or little edge cases, I think he put it. And today, I think he also got a tweet. I know what it was, because I asked him. I said, "What was the situation?" And he said they've added an additional. And this is the key part: an additional 1,000 people to the early access program. So when he says additional, there's already 1,000 in there, because I think, Michael, you were the one that had told me that there was reportedly 2,000 people in the program now. So Elon basically confirmed that's exactly what they did. They added another 1,000 people. So hopefully it's coming out soon. I mean, everybody's waiting for this. We've got the forums all set up. We've got it all broken down into different subject areas, of course, because there's a lot of stuff going on in version 9. So if those of you who are in the forum or out on the internet and you want to check it out, we're kind of ready for the software when it finally drops. We've got it kind of organized. So just a little bit of a public service announcement. If you're on the forum, please do a search before you post anything about firmware. Don't create any more forum posts. We've got it all set up for you. Just go into the software in the firmware section. You'll see them. They're all tagged at the top. So in preparation for this, of course, Tesla sent out a new update to the Tesla app on iOS as well as Android, and it basically adds a bunch of features specifically for version 9. Now, you can install it on your phone right now, but some of these features don't come live until you actually have version 9 on your car. So here's a few things, and I have some screenshots here that I pulled up. There's a gentleman who did a YouTube video and gave us a few snapshots here, so I'll just show you the first one. Here's an example. In this example, he has I think it's the Google Maps app, and when you pull up an address, you'll be able to tap the share icon, and it pulls up the little share function. This is on iOS, by the way. I'm sure Android's the same way. And if you enable the share function inside the Tesla app, you can then send that address to your car so that when you get in the car, the address is just sitting there on the screen ready to navigate. So that's a really, really cool feature. I like that a lot.
Trev, can you go back one screen?
Yeah, sure. Here you go.
Just to let everyone know. So if you don't see that when you look, in that row where you see Tesla, scroll all the way to the right to where you see more. You can enable Tesla and then position it where you want.
Yes, that's true. It's not on by default, so you actually have to go into the Tesla app or the settings in iOS and actually enable that. Yeah. And some other stuff that came up. Finally, we will have the ability to do a software update. So when there's a software update on your car, it means that you will not have to run out in the rain or the snow. You can actually apply it from the phone. Again, you need this new firmware on the car before you can actually do that, but the functionality is built into the app. So when you tap software update, you'll get the screen that says, do you want to install now? It takes approximately 45 minutes. And of course, when you allow it to go, you'll get that notification. Interestingly, too, there's also one that says cancel the update. Now, I don't know if that's on a timer like in the car, if you got a 2-minute timer, if it goes away. But yeah, there's some really interesting things. What's the other thing that they added? Let's see here. I don't have a screenshot of it, so I'm just going to kind of go back over here.
Media controls from the app.
Yeah, that's it. Being able to do media control for passengers or anyone else in the car. Now, I'm going to assume that they need to be tied into the same Tesla account. I don't know. But passengers will now be able to control media that's playing on the screen on the car from their phone, which is kind of a neat thing. Right. So yeah, it requires Tesla 3.6 on iOS or an Android. That's a version of the app, by the way. And the firmware in the car has to be at least 2018.39. Well, I think the latest point update that I've seen is .2 or .3. So Tesla's still doing little point releases to the early access people. I think Mark Benton has been posting some of that stuff out on Twitter. So if you want to look him up, I'll put a link in the video in the show description if you want to check out his Twitter feed. He's been posting some information on that. So I think there's been also some other people that have been saying, oh, I got the software update on my car. I hope it's version 9. I hope it's version 9. And so far, we haven't seen anybody get version 9 yet other than people that are in the early access program. So usually it's a little point update in preparation for this. So the official version of the firmware on the Teslas that is officially version 9 is 2018.39 dot a third digit. And we don't know what the third digit is when it finally drops, but yeah, so far it's like .2 or .3. So look for that hopefully sometime soon if Elon is to be believed. Again, Elon time is a real thing. We know this. It was just everybody's got they're all antsy because this is such a big update. It's just crazy.
So I have this interesting question. This is probably more rhetorical. Mm-hmm. So we know, like with iOS and Android, since we talked about it with the mobile app just a moment ago, we know what the adoption rates are for when a new version of iOS comes out. It's like when iOS 10 and 11 and 12 comes out. Like, people are quick to get to their phones. They're like, I got to get it and I got to update. I'm curious to know when version 9 rolls out, how quickly the adoption rate is going to skyrocket to like 80%, 90%, and so on. I'm guessing, again, we know the car notifies you, but still I'm wondering if people, like, the day that they get notified, how many cars that day have version 9 installed within 24 hours?
Well, we'll never know those actual numbers because Tesla won't reveal it, but judging from what I've seen on the internet, talking to a lot of people, this is the update that everybody is really looking forward to. I mean, like as soon as it shows up, I'm installing it. Even if I'm on the road, I'm going to pull over and install this thing. Don't do that, of course.
And again, if you're on the forum, don't create 7 different forums going, it says I can update. Why can't I update from my phone? You have to have version 9 first before you can do that.
That's right. Please be a good citizen on the forum. Do a search first.
Just do a search, please. You can Google it. Just find it. It's there.
Yeah.
And I would say the rhetorical question on top of yours is, will it actually be pushed wide to everyone when it drops, or will they do another slow but steady rollout?
Staged. I've heard it both ways. Traditionally, Tesla's always put these out in little waves as they go out, but we've been hearing some little rumors and stuff that this one might drop all at once. So we'll see when the time comes. Again, we don't have any concrete evidence on that, but yeah. We'll see when that comes out because this is like I said, this is a big update. A lot of things going on in this. Of course, the Dashcam thing everybody's talking about. We're not really going to rehash a lot of that stuff here on the podcast, but it's pretty basic at this point. Tesla has said that they're going to be continuing to update the Dashcam firmware and functionality. In preparation for this, if you want to use the Dashcam function, you'll need to secure yourself a USB key formatted as FAT32, and you have to create a folder in there called Tesla Cam, capital T, capital C. all together, and that's where the clips will go into. So as it turns out, it's not cloud based; it's going straight onto a USB key. So those of you who may have a Nomad or a Jetta wireless charging pad, you'll have to get yourself a USB hub or something like that, because it will use one of the front USB ports. You cannot plug it into the back because those are power only. They're not data, only the 2 front ports. So if that's what you want to use, go there. As I suspected, the basic features of the Dashcam are not as good as, say, something like a Blackview. So if you really want a lot of features, cloud features, all that kind of stuff, always on function, of course, because the Tesla Dashcam will not have always on function. It's only when the car is powered on. So, third-party dash cams are always better, but hey, this is software. It can be improved over time. So, anyways, really looking forward to it. It's going to be really cool when it finally drops. Last but not least, did you want to make a comment? Anything?
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say, on
Please
Model 3 Owners Club, there is, someone did share a clip of how big the files will be. So if you want to kind of gauge how big of a USB card to get, that'll kind of help situate you.
Yeah, good idea. I think anywhere from 16 to 32 gig would probably be enough for most people.
I got 64.
Well, I made the mistake. I mean, I went and bought a 256 gig for my media, and I literally put my whole iTunes collection, like everything, on this key. And that was a big mistake, because every time I turn on my car, the bloody media player in my car wants to index the whole drive, and it literally takes about 10 minutes. So in this case, smaller is better until they fix this this constant indexing situation. I don't see any reason why it has to index every time power's on. So that's a little bit of a feedback thing that I have to give back to Tesla. Fix that problem. But yeah. Anyhow, moving along. Ian, we did some runs last week in your Performance Model 3, and I published the video today, so those of you who want to check it out, I'll put a link down below in the video description or the podcast, and you can check out the video. We were able to break the record. So, and you did some more testing today. So why don't you fill in the listeners and the viewers, of course, what we were able to achieve.
Well, I think the video does tell the story in much greater detail, so I don't want to rehash that for those of you who've already seen it, or if you haven't, then I encourage you, go have a look, and then what I'm about to tell you makes a lot more sense. But I think we can rightfully claim that we broke the 0 to 60 record, which stood previously at 3.13 seconds, and we knocked a whole 1/100th of a second off. So yeah, I mean, at this point, this is basically Barstool bragging rights. I'm not going to really claim that, we just smashed it out of the park. We more or less put a tiny little dent in it, and it comes down to, I think, the accuracy of the instruments. It would be interesting for Eric, the previous, or let's call him co-record holder, to for him to swap instruments with us back and forth and see what we would get. But yeah, I mean, as far as the number, the Beltronics unit we're using seems to be pretty accurate. It certainly was very consistent. I mean, the first 4 runs we did on the OE wheels, we were getting 3.20 seconds.
Yeah.
So I'm very happy with the consistency of that unit. And it was borrowed from some of my friends at Guide de l'Auto, who are a fairly savvy vehicle testing organization here in Quebec. They're well-respected journalists. So the numbers were solid on the first set of runs at 3.20 with the factory 20-inch performance upgrade wheels. We then swapped to a set of fast FC04. Lightweight flow-formed 18 by 9-inch wheels with some Yokohama 255 40R18 Advanced Sport V105s, a somewhat stickier tire with a 240 tread wear. It's
still street legal, though. We have to make a point
still
of
street
that.
legal. Yeah, it's not even really a DOT competition tire. It's for people who do want to track occasionally, but want a tire that's mostly going to spend its life on the street. That's how this car is going to go. I wanted something that would handle the track, but mostly live its life on the street. And there's a huge amount of feedback on the YouTube channel already about the tire choice size. A lot of people are like, wow, you picked a shorter tire. There's a lot more wheel gap. How come you didn't go with a 265? There's a lot of calculations that went into figuring this out, and a lot of it had to do with the weight, because as much as lightening the wheels, and we did knock 9 pounds off per corner compared to
9.2 to be exact.
Well, thank you, Trevor. So yes, I'm glad you're paying attention. Knocking 9 pounds off a corner is not insignificant. And then some people are like, well, you only knocked like, what is it, 1/10 of a second off the car stock time, or barely that, 8/100ths, if you want to be truthful. So what's the deal with that? Well, you got to remember, this is a car that's already lightning quick to begin with. So even going from 3.20 to down to the time we achieved 3.12 seconds, it represents a 2.5% increase in the acceleration time. And that's not insignificant just for knocking a few pounds off per corner. So yeah, is it justifiable on its own? Certainly not seat of the pants. No one can ever feel the difference. But if you're out for bragging rights, sure, why not? And the faster you go, actually, the more of a difference it has, because the inertia you're overcoming tends to get multiplied with the RPM of the wheel. What'll really be interesting is when Tesla uncorks these cars, because this to me is a part of the new findings. As Trevor mentioned, I went out and did some more runs just this afternoon, just after leaving the office. We still had a little bit of warm weather and sun here. And during the tests, you'll notice that I was running around 86, 87% state of charge. And as we know, people optimally say you got to be in the 90 to 100 range if you want to get the most out of the car. So to test this theory, I charged the poor little thing to 100%. It didn't stay parked there.
Oh no!
For all of you battery nerds, it didn't stay there all
your
day.
battery.
I know. No, it was at 100%. Horror, as Marlon Brando would say, the horror. No, it was at 100% for all of about 3.5 minutes.
It's such a horrible thing,
Not bad.
Not bad.
So I immediately took it out so as not to harm it, and immediately started burning off electrons. You'll all be relieved to know. And yeah, despite my best efforts, I got 2 back-to-back two-way runs of exactly, count it, 3.12 seconds. So that's as good as we can get by knocking the weight out of it. I don't think it's a traction issue. As a matter of fact, I got a lot more tests in mind where we might go with an even lighter weight set with potentially narrower, stickier tires. And I think that might be the way to go, because I don't think we can really exploit the traction of the 255s as it stands. And here's why. And I think anyone who's driven a Performance Model 3 would agree. This car does not launch as hard as a P85D Insane,
Correct.
which has very comparable numbers in 0 to 60. It doesn't have that violent, shot off a catapult feeling. I mean, it's quick, but there's this kind of whoop before it takes off.
Yeah.
And that, to me, reeks of it's being throttled. I think for durability, drivetrain, whatever purposes, they're trying to sandbag the car initially so they don't break axles or the final drive or any of the components. They're probably watching to see how it does over the next 6 months, a year. I mean, we've talked about this before, but now having launched the car so many times, I'm convinced that it's very soft at launch on purpose. And this extra little speed that may be coming that Elon had, hinted at months ago would be in the launch phase. Once the car hits about 20 or 30 miles an hour, it's all hands on deck. It pulls hard. That's where your cheeks get stretched and people start screaming and all the rest of the fun happens. But off the line, there's more to be had. So until we achieve that, I think it's going to be go lighter again and maybe even narrow up the tires, because we're certainly not using all the launch traction we can, even in slip start. I mean, as Eric has noted in the US in his videos and so on, we've all tried it and it doesn't seem to help. And if this car really had that snap off the line, it would be for sure chirping the tires on the slip start. It's not doing that. So
I would tend to agree with you. This is not the first time Tesla, if they did this, it wouldn't be the first time, because they did it last year. Cars that were manufactured, I think if I remember correctly, sometime after the spring of 2016 and going into 2017, they did a software update on all the cars because they had made some changes internally in the battery, and the term was uncorking. And it was just a simple software update that service could push to the cars, and it literally shaved a one second off the car's acceleration. So in Ian's case, I think... you're probably looking at some reliability testing and durability looking at the car, at least for the, initially for these cars. And then they may be able to, to tweak it a little bit later. So it would not surprise me. I mean, we were shooting for 3.0 seconds. I mean, that's really the number we were looking for. I don't see with, a hundredth of a second or tenth of a second, it wouldn't be impossible to achieve. Maybe if we get one of the, lighter, smaller ladies in the office, maybe to take the car for a ride.
Well, that was being discussed today. You're absolutely right. And I mean, I got 50 pounds on Eric, so right away I'm at a serious disadvantage there. There's extra.
So there's that to be done. I mean, short of going extreme, which is, pulling out the interior and so on and so forth to lighten it up even more, I don't think, no, we're looking at a stock car as much as possible. I mean, lots of people want to change wheels. I know you've had probably a couple of conversations with people on the phone today looking at changing wheels already because of the video. Yeah, right now it's bragging rights. Nobody in their right minds really needs a car that goes, 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds, or in this case 3.12, but it's bragging rights. It's kind of fun.
Or 1.9 seconds.
Yeah, or even less. I mean, we haven't seen the SpaceX package yet on the Roadster. I would suspect the Roadster, when it does, they'll probably hit 1.5 with the cold gas thrusters. That's my prediction. I had predicted for some time that we would see low 3 numbers on the Model 3 performance car. Glad they didn't make a fool of me, of course. So. all good. All's well as ends well, I guess.
I just have one question. 0 to 60, 1.5. What are the odds somebody passes out in the car while doing a 0 to 60 run?
I'm a fighter pilot. I could take it. I take 10 Gs on a regular basis.
You could, no, I mean, most people are good for short periods like that, up to about 6 Gs, and you'd have to be going a hell of a lot quicker than that. I think at 1.5 seconds, if my math is good, you'd be pulling about 2 Gs straight forward.
I've done 3 Gs in an aerobatic aircraft, and for somebody who doesn't do that on a regular basis, that's no fun.
Well, you're going to go from G forces to Jesus Christ forces. We'll just throw that out there. Yeah, that's a good question, Mike. Really, man. Now I'm afraid. Okay.
Autopilot safety features. It's okay.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of safety features, I'm not sure if you guys saw this. Tesla on its blog today put out a story on their crash reports. Now, this is something that, and I know this wasn't on our agenda, but I'm like, I remember this from today.
Yes, please do.
Yeah, so Tesla is now going to, on a quarterly basis, report their crash statistics. They call it the Vehicle Safety Report. So it's going to be for each quarter of every year. And this first report that came out today highlighted the following numbers. Now, we estimate that in terms of autopilot mileage driven, that the entire fleet of cars has eclipsed 1.5 billion with a B miles driven. So when you're looking at these numbers, can kind of compare it to that. So over the past quarter, in quarter 3, Tesla registered 1 accident or crash-like event for every 3.34 million miles driven in which drivers had autopilot engaged. For those driving without autopilot, we registered 1 accident or crash-like event for every 1.92 million miles driven. Now, how does that compare to other vehicles? Well, Tesla tells you. According to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, or NHTSA, as Trevor likes to say, the most recent data shows that in the U.S., there's an automobile crash every 492,000 miles. So think about that for a second. There's more cars for more manufacturers, and almost every 500,000 miles, there's a crash. Tesla vehicles, whether autopilot's in or not, is almost 2 million miles driven before there was actually a crash related. And now, how does that compare to other stuff? Well, again, you heard those numbers there, but NHTSA does not necessarily have the near misses, or what Tesla calls crash-like events. So if a vehicle swerves all of a sudden or has not a major accident, that is also factored into Tesla's numbers, not with NHTSA. So it makes the numbers even more impressive that you're essentially driving the safest vehicles on the road, period.
Excellent.
And then when you actually do hit something, they are literally the safest vehicles on the road.
Yes.
Well, by design. By design. Mm-hmm. And of course, they have the best telemetry. So as soon as something happens, it gets reported right back to right to the company.
Yes.
So yeah, you're driving the safest cars there is out there. You know, makes all us feel nice and warm and fuzzy inside. Gotta like that.
So nice.
Yeah. Well, on that note, I think we're going to call it an evening. So, as usual, where can people find you guys out on the internet? Eric? How about you take point on this one? And where can people find you if they want to chit-chat?
Oh, sure. Thank you very much, everybody. If you didn't get a chance to watch this video on YouTube, but you heard some stuff, make sure you go ahead and get onto the YouTube channel so you can see some of the photographs and videos that we put up there when we do our podcast. So, you can find me on Twitter at the handle ECFix. That is ECFIX. Now, there's a chance I will change my Twitter handle sometime very soon. I will not say what, But if you have recommendations, I am always happy to hear them. Send them to my Twitter handle at ECFix, and we'll take it from there.
Excellent. And Michael, where can people find you on the internet?
Well, you can find me on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and of course Twitter at TeslaTunity, and on Model 3 Owners Club, SOFA on Model 3.
Yes, and I understand you're going to have a new video dropping real soon, so look for that.
Thank you.
Yes.
And Andy Harmony, and Clover, and Bumble, and Friendster, and MySpace.
MySpace? That's still a thing?
I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
And he's got his Lycos page, his GeoCities account. He's everywhere. Michael is just everywhere.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, last but not least, Ian Pavelko, where can people find you? And check out your nice series of weapon of mass adoptionware.
Yes, well, I spend most of my social media time on Twitter. You can find me at Ian Pavelko.
I hope you picked up some new followers since the video.
It's been nuts. I've about 150 followers just in the last week.
Come on, we got to get that 10 times bigger. 1,000 followers. I say that. 2 weeks.
1,000? Okay, that's the challenge. Okay, people,
all right.
Start following.
Following.
So, there we go. So at Ian Pavelko, you can find me there. Of course, on Model 3 Owners Club forum, the handle is Mad Hungarian. And then there is my Teespring shop where I sell the Evolve and the new shirt that you see me wearing in the video, the Weapon of Mass Adoption shirt, which is Mad Hungarian's Evolve wear at Teespring. But Trevor, I'm sure you'll be kind enough.
Yep, the link is in the
link.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm just going to apologize to Wormhand, who put some nice comments on the YouTube just about today's release with the performance, where we do the whole breakdown of what it takes to fit a performance Model 3. He asked some questions about doing different spacer setups and why I chose the centering ring in front and spacer in the back. We didn't have time on today's show, but I'll try and elaborate on that maybe in a little bit further, or I will direct you to the wheel and tire text section on the forum. I'm going to talk about it in way more detail, and if anybody has any really specific pointy questions, please, by all means, drop something on there. Send me a private message. I really try to answer everybody within 24 hours. So if you have questions about what you see in the video and you want to discuss more, I'll be glad to. And one last thing is I didn't discuss in the video the fact that we're going to have a fully machined wheel solution. You see centering rings, you see spacers. We've just today figured out how we're going to do the machining. So we'll have custom machined wheel solutions for all of you looking for 18, 19, or 20-inch wheels for your Performance Model 3 with upgrade, coming to you soon from Fast Wheels.
Excellent. Well, that's really great news. Well, once we have that, we'll put that in the show video description for the people listening out there. It'll also be in the show notes for the podcast. So, right. So that's the end of the show. I just want to say a big thank you to everybody out there who's listening. You can find me on Twitter. My handle's at Model 3 Owners. Check out the forum at model3ownersclub.com. That is absolutely the best place for you to be discussing Model 3. And last but not least, want to say a big thank you to all of our Patreon sponsors. They're the guys that really make this show really happen. So if you check out the forum or the Patreon page, you can find that patreon.com/Model 3 Owners Club. And thank you again to all of our sponsors who really make this happen. Really appreciate it. We have a new one, and you'll see it at the end of the video. And for that, we'll leave it like that, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for listening and watching, everyone. We'll talk to you next time. See ya.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night. We'll see you later.
All right,
Bye.
Marlon. All right, Marlon. Good night, folks.
The horror.